It definitely works well if I remember to start the recordings. But we are able to attach that. That way anybody from the public can watch any meeting that we're having.
Right.
And then there's also the record that anybody can see. And the other thing that we can do, and we don't necessarily do it for these meetings, but we do it for the board meetings and the I think the planning commission as well as the zoning. We can actually go right to whatever the board item, whatever the item is. So the recording is tied to the agenda. And so you could go and click on it and just watch that section of the agenda if you want to.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you mark the agenda? I mean, you separate the pieces of the discussion so you can define what part you go to?
For the recording,
Yes.
Suzanne's the one who's doing most of them right now. That's the reason why we don't do everything. I mean, we could if whoever's responsible for your minutes wants to do that, we can show you how. It just takes some time because you have to go through the entire recording again.
Well, I kind of doubt if our meeting is going to be a big hit across the
I don't know. You guys have, I mean, you guys are doing some speakers now and everything like that. So you're having more than just,
yeah, that's true.
You're having some chance for people to be involved.
I'll wait about 2 more minutes, then we'll officially kick off the meeting.
Okay.
Harry, are you here?
I don't see his picture.
Yeah, I see only 5 of us.
Do you count the dog?
I only count.
What?
Three
Three
of
of
you
us.
from the committee.
Yes, 3. What was that, 4? 3.
Yeah, you can have the meeting, Bruce, but if we don't get another member from the board, you can't take any action, or from the commission.
All right.
I know that Eileen's going to come on later.
Yeah, she's looking at 5:45 or something like that.
Yeah, I told her she didn't need to come on too early, so she didn't,
Well, let's get going and let the other folks in as they arrive.
Yep. I resent the invitation to everybody too, just in case.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Now there's
This is a
Sheila.
order for the EAC, Newtown Township EAC on December 7th, 2020. First, I'm going to take a roll call. Cindy Mahalo,
Here.
Harry Bryant, Janet Vanis,
Here?
Jason DeCecco, Sheila O'Sullivan Feeney,
Here.
Hmm.
Joe Pinto, Mike Russo, Leonard Altieri,
Here.
and Steve Neese.
Here.
Let's take a moment for some silence, contemplation. Okay.
Today is D-Day, isn't it? December
Pearl
7th.
Harbor Day.
Yes, right. That's what I thought.
I've got no publicity. I didn't even know that.
No, right.
Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Hello. Cindy?
Oh, second.
Okay. Okay, the agenda for tonight has been approved. Do I have a motion to approve our minutes from the November 2nd meeting?
I have a question. So
Sure.
do we have a reclassification? I see it's co-chairs listed instead of chair and vice chair.
I think co-chairs is fine. It works for me.
I noticed that also. I didn't know I had gotten a promotion.
Aren't you
I'll look to see what happened. I don't know if I'll have to see what happened there.
Make sure she gets a pay raise.
Yeah, I want double.
Double.
Double on nothing is nothing.
Pay raise will come out of my salary. That's the problem.
That's so kind of you, Bruce.
All the better.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Oh, so moved.
Okay. A second?
Seconded.
Okay. Well, Connie, we're a little ahead of schedule here. Are you ready to give your presentation?
I am ready.
Okay. Connie's from Dunwoody Village, located in, I guess it's 60 plus acres and right in the heart of Newtown Square. She's going to talk about what her what's happening at Dunwoody.
Somehow or other, it seems to be asking me to return to meeting. Steve is,
You should be able to go down at the bottom of your page and see a green area that says share screen.
no, it's telling me I have a big white space saying return to meeting. So I'm going to try that. For some reason, I've gotten partially knocked out of here, I think. Let me
We
see.
still see you,
Oh, wait.
Connie.
No, okay, here we go. I'm good, I hope.
There you go.
There we go. Now with a little bit of luck. Okay. Thank you for having me. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing at Dunwoody, primarily with our wildlife refuge. And I have to say the projects that we've been working on are sort of on hold at the moment because we're just starting a very major construction project on the site. And I'd like to start by orienting you a little bit. The entrance to Dunwoody, Westchester Pike, is over here. What you're seeing here, this is our trail map. The main, I'm getting some feedback on the sound. I don't know if you are. The main part of the campus is in this area here on the right. And what you're looking at in yellow is the trail system that we have. The back 45 acres of our property is what we consider to be our wildlife refuge. We have several areas of woods over in this area, which is in the southeastern part of the site. We have about 9 or 10 acres of woods. The high school is right in along here. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is our pond right here. And along here this is Hunter Run, which exits our property, goes under 252, and eventually ends up in the Springton Reservoir. This over here, This is West Dunwoody Drive. And there is another stream that goes along here that, as far as I know, has no name. We've never been able to find a name for it anyway. We have 3 major trails that are connected. This is our west trail here. And it comes down to here. We have 2 bridges across Hunter Run. This lower bridge, whoops. Let me go back. This lower bridge here. And then we pick up what we call the Fox Trail, which circles around here, comes around here. These are the new Penrose houses along here. Oh dear. And this connects with our 3rd trail, which is our Southeast Woods Trail. So that just gives you a little bit of orientation. Not wonderful. We do care about our trees. I have to say, I filched this sign from the internet. It's not on our property, but I think it conveys something we're trying to say.
Very good.
I love that, Connie.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially the fingers are made of twigs, right?
Yes, they are.
It's darling. I'll order 20 of them.
Yeah, I thought it was really great. We started this project in 2016. So we're in the 4th year of it now, or I guess actually the 5th year. For the first 6 months, we did nothing at all except research and planning. We went to a lot of other nature centers, arboreta. I think we visited like 12 or 13 different places to see what they were doing and how they were doing it. We then pulled together a committee of Dunwoody residents called BirdCalm and started doing the planning. That resulted in a master plan, which we took to our board of trustees and the administration. This project is in fact a joint project between our administration and our residents association. Both sides put in labor, both sides put in planning, both sides put in money. And we've come a fair way, although we still have a lot left to do. The first project that we undertook was to register our historic white ash tree with the Forest Service in the Champion Tree Program. At the time when we did this, it was registered as the 2nd largest ash tree in Delaware County. The 1st largest is, I believe, in Ridley Creek, and the 4th largest in the whole state. It's a very old tree. It certainly has been here back in the days when the property of Dunwoody was a farm. We don't have very many ash trees on the property. And with the emerald ash borer, of course, that's a concern. This tree is treated every year. We treat it with a chemical-based ground soak. We don't inject the tree itself. We do not treat our other ash trees. We don't have very many others. We have a few in the woods. But so far anyway, knock on wood, we haven't lost any of our other ashes. This is, on the left is a picture of it in the summertime. And on the right is a picture in the fall when it's been losing its leaves. The other project that we did very early on was to identify the different species of trees we had on our property and label them. And these were the kind of labels that we used, which we got commercially. I believe these are also the same labels being used in the township because they got the idea from us.
Right.
And on the right, you can see the way they're mounted on the trees. We mount them with screws and springs, and they're actually mounted about an inch away from the surface of the tree. In this way, the tree can grow without swallowing the label. As the tree grows, the springs just compress. Eventually, they do have to be reset, but so far our trees have not grown into their labels yet. We ended up identifying, I believe, if I remember correctly, 42 species of trees that we have labeled. Another big concern for us has been bluebirds. And we wanted to initiate an effort to encourage bluebirds. And we've done that in a couple of ways. Again, we went out and we got a lot of advice on how to do this. Aronimink has a very extensive bluebird trail, as does Kendall Crosslands. And so we worked with both of these groups to find out what they were doing and how they were doing it. We now have about 12 nesting boxes on site in various different parts of the site. Some of them have been purchased. Most of them have been made in our own wood shop. On the left, this is one of the ones that was made. It has this gizmo attached to it, which is wire screening. This is called a knoll guard. And what this does, it's hinged so it can be removed for cleaning when we need to get into the birdhouses to clean them. But the purpose of this is to keep predators away, like raccoons, large birds, things like that. They can't reach in through this to get access to the contents of the nesting box. This baffle down here is a snake guard. Snakes will come up these poles and crawl into these nesting boxes and devour eggs or baby birds. So we've added these snake baffles. And this is one of our bluebirds. All the photographs that you're seeing today have been taken by our residents, including this one, which I think is just a fabulous shot.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Connie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
My understanding on bluebirds is that one of the criteria is that they need an open field that is near a body of water or a source of water.
They do. And
Yeah.
I'm getting to that.
Okay. No, I'm just envious, but I think because we don't have a body of water at Hunter's Run. But
I just thought you might like to see a couple of our birds. This is a blue heron who comes and visits our fountain pond quite regularly. I saw him just last week actually. And this is a red-tailed hawk sitting on our signs. One of the things that we have done over the course of the last 2 years is that we have posted trail signage on all our trails. This particular sign is at the junction of 3 of our trails, cleverly decorated by this red-tailed hawk. Now, we have put in 3 meadows. This one is quite near a body of water. It's right, Hunter Run is right behind all this riparian area here. And this also is close to our pond and near our retention basins, which also fill up. And one reason that we put these little strip meadows in was one of the things that we learned about birds as we were doing this is when they're adults, some birds are seed eaters and some birds are insect eaters. But when they're babies, they all eat insects, no matter what they're going to eat later in life. They start out eating insects, which means we need to provide a good environment for insects, and that's these meadows. This is the East Lawn Strip meadow. When we developed these meadows, we brought in Larry Weiner, who is an expert on meadows, and we got him to give us advice about what we should do and how we should do it. In the case of this particular meadow, he said that we already had some natural grasses in it. And if we just let it grow up over the course of several years, the natural grasses would crowd out the invasive species. And that, in fact, is what has happened. The lawn grass in this area has been being crowded out by the native grasses. And most of what you see here now is native grass. On the other hand,
Connie, I'm sorry, Connie, I have a question. How often do you mow that?
well, mowing is a little bit of an issue. It's different in the two meadows. This meadow, when we can get our grounds department to cooperate, gets mowed twice during the season, once in late May and once in late June, and then it gets left alone. And the reason for that is because mowing on that kind of a cycle will help knock down the weeds that grow up in it. Grass regenerates faster than the weeds do. So by mowing on that kind of a cycle, it helps keep the weeds down. And as you can see, just from looking at this, there's not much weed in there.
No.
We had a very different situation over on the west side of the property. This is the edge of our large western retention basin, which is between West Dunwoody Drive and the stream with no name. And we couldn't put a little meadow in the retention basin itself because it was too wet. So, but it had a very big bank. And so we decided that we would put it in there. We had a different problem here because in this case, we had to kill off all the pre-existing grass. The way we killed it off was to put down black plastic over it and leave it there for several months. And that killed everything that was underneath it. I've also killed holly tree stumps that way. So after several months, we then seeded it with native grasses that are appropriate to this part of the country. And the first set of seeding didn't take. We had to reseed it a second time. The second seeding did take, and this is what it looked like when it was in the early stages of growing up with the second seeding. This picture actually was taken, I guess, a year ago. We had much higher growth this year. Where's my cursor? Here we go. And I just thought you'd like to see some of our animals, just because these are good pictures. We have foxes. We had an adventure last year when we had a fox that got quite a serious case of mange. And so we researched how to cure mange in foxes and discovered that you can use ivermectin of the same kind that is used in pig farming, and that foxes will eat it if you make little raw balls of raw hamburger, or if you insert the ivermectin, which is liquid, into a hard-boiled egg. And so we had a couple of residents who took this project on, And over the course of about 3 months, we were able to cure the mange. So our foxes are healthy again.
Yeah, they look beautiful.
We also have deer. We have 2 small herds of deer, one on the east side, one on the west side, about 4 in each herd. We now have a rain garden. When Penrose was built, when the Penrose houses were built, 3 retention basins had to be put in. This is the largest of them, known as retention basin number 1. And this is what it looked like just after construction and while it was under construction. It was subsequently planted. The bottom of it was contoured into a series of hummocks. And those hummocks were then planted with native flowering species. And the area in between the hummocks was planted with native grasses. And that was all part of the specifications of the Penrose project. So that was all done as part of the construction there. This again is fairly early on. It has since matured into a very nice rain garden. And we have had, we work quite a bit with Darren LeBrake, who is an expert environmentalist and has been instrumental in the Haverford Township Rain Garden project. And I actually found him through you guys. And he's been very, very helpful to us. And one of the things that we will be working on in the future is having Darren come in and evaluate the rain garden for us and give us a recommended maintenance plan for it. Because right now, the maintenance plan that we have to follow is one that is specified in the specs of the Penrose project. And unfortunately, it resulted in having to have this whole thing completely mowed down to the ground at the wrong time of year and in the wrong way. So it ended up truncating some of the mounds and just completely stripping the vegetation off them entirely. So we're hoping that down the pike, we can develop a new plan that the powers that be in our administration and in the township will agree to so that we can actually maintain this rain garden properly. It looks wonderful. It has been heaven for the birds, especially the bluebirds. They love it. And we have all different kinds of birds. We have red-winged blackbirds, bluebirds, the usual jays, what have you. We've identified so far about 65 species of bird on the property. We have a total of around 14 or 15 acres of woods on the property, split up in 2 different areas. This is the southeast woods, which is a magnificent stand of mature deciduous trees. And there aren't many stands of mature deciduous trees like this left in Delaware County. So we're very careful with it. On the right is our southwest woods, which go between West Dunwoody Drive and basically the shopping center. There's a large ravine that goes through there. So we're not doing anything with the southwest woods at the moment because it's extremely difficult to access because of the very steep ravine that's been cut by the stream that goes through there. There are places where there's a sheer drop off of maybe as much as 20 or 30 feet.
Wow.
Let me go back to this earlier slide for a minute. We had what I view to be a necessary tragedy in the southeast woods about a year ago, which was that 13 of these beautiful, huge trees had to be taken down. Some of them were sick. Some of them had other issues, but all of them were in danger of knocking down Penrose houses if they should fall. And so for the safety of the Penrose residents, those trees had to be removed. There was great mourning among the residents. And so we decided that we would use this as an opportunity to plant more native species in the woods. So we set up a fund drive among our residents so that they could purchase a memorial tree in honor of someone who was deceased or another resident or what have you. And we decided we would try to replant 13 trees that were native species and that were smaller than these huge trees so that they did not create any kind of a danger for the Penrose residences. And so we did that. It was wildly successful. We raised 3 times the amount of money we actually needed. The administration chipped in 10 shrubs that were native species. And we planted 4 different kinds of trees, red buds, dogwoods, holly, and I'm trying to remember what the 4th was. And we planted 13 of these different trees. We still have money left, which we may use to plant more trees, or we may use it on the rain garden, or we have some other ideas as well. These are all things that may come down the pike. One of the projects that we started, which is currently on hold, is the renovation of our fountain pond. The fountain pond actually is classified by the feds as the headwaters of Hunter Run. So we have an obligation to take care of it. The pond goes back to the original founding of Dunwoody. It's about 45 years old. It has never had any maintenance to speak of in that period. It desperately needs to be dredged. It's gotten quite shallow, and the concrete walls around the edge of it, which you really can't see here because they're covered with multiflora rose, need to be rebuilt in a few spots. On the northern side, a rim needs to be put in, and the whole thing needs to be re-landscaped, an area that's probably in total over an acre. I had 2 different sets of people come in and look at it. We have a rough estimate of what it's going to cost to do this work. And we had money in our capital budget to do it. And then that money had to be pulled out for another project. And then our major construction project that we're doing right now started. So this is on hold for the moment. But the one thing that we did manage to get done before we had to put it on hold was we got Darren LeBrake to come in and test the sediment in the pond, because once the sludge is excavated out of the pond, we're going to have a problem with disposal. Well, the first problem will be getting the water out of the sludge. The second problem, once the water is out of the sludge, will be disposing of the residue. And whether or not we can dispose of the residue depends on what chemicals are in it. If it's relatively sterile, we don't have a problem. We can do almost anything with it. If it turns out to have a lot of nasty, obnoxious chemicals in it, like arsenic, then it would have to go to a hazardous waste disposal site. So it was important that we develop an understanding of what was in our sludge. And that was what we brought Darren LeBrake in to do. We were particularly concerned about the possibility of arsenic because Dunwoody used to be a farm, and it was a dairy farm, but it also had an apple orchard on it. And back in the olden days, arsenic was frequently used in orchards as an insecticide. So I had my fingers crossed when Darren was collecting this sample. And he was very brave. It was a cold day in October. He stepped off the edge of the pond into what he thought was the lip of it, which was obscured by vegetation. He missed the lip, stepped out into nothingness, and went belly flopping into the pond on a cold day. And unfortunately, he belly flopped to the point where water got inside his waders. So the poor man, he was a saint about it. I am happy to report that the report came back with no serious contamination of any sort in our sludge. And that was really, really good news. Unfortunately, we now can't proceed with this until the construction project is finished. The report that we had was only good for 2 years. So we're probably going to have to test again before we can move forward with this project. But I would probably want to test again anyway, because I don't know what kind of runoff we might get from the construction. Although in theory, we won't get any at all. We have a number of other things that we do. A lot of our trees are being choked by vines. So we have a group called the Vine Murderers. And here they are, hard at work. They go out twice in the fall and twice in the spring. And we're concentrating especially on trying to protect the trees along Hunter Run. As we can work on trees on other parts of the property, we do. But the trees around Hunter Run are particularly important. We also have another group called the Merry Rakers, who rake off our trails twice a year. We do a lot of other programs as well. When we can, we take field trips. We do programs in the auditorium for our residents. And that's about it. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Can we applaud? It was wonderful, Connie.
Bravo. That is fabulous.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Wow.
Happy to share it with you. And I guess, Stephen, I'll stop sharing now and give the screen back to you. Is that the way this works?
Well done, Connie.
Thank you.
Yes,
Connie,
please,
I do have
Connie.
a question. Connie, I
Yeah.
do have a question. I know since it's private property and obviously with COVID right now, but when the COVID is under control, would people be able to get back to access to just to see your beautiful trails? Would we be able to get back there at some time?
Not without an appointment. We can't let the public in. There are all kinds of liability issues with
Sure.
that.
Okay,
Um,
it looks like a beautiful site.
Well, it is a beautiful site, and one of the things that we had thought of, but again, it's something that's gone on hold because of COVID, was possibly trying to arrange to do public tours, maybe on Newtown Square Day,
Okay,
something of that sort.
and that sounds great. And
We can do another long-term thing that we're thinking about is trying to see if we can start up some educational programs working with the school district. Maybe something having to do with stream ecology for high school students using Hunter Run. We have a variety of ideas around there that are in very, very early stages and probably can't come to, it can't really be undertaken for a couple of years.
Okay, we later in the meeting, I know we'll be talking about the winter salt watch. So I thought that'd be of interest to you, especially since Fox's Run goes into Springton Point. So we'll talk about that stream monitoring program in a little while. You might be interested in.
I would definitely be. I will stay on. Stephen, should I just click stop share?
Yes, please.
Thanks a lot. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is Eileen here yet?
She is.
She is?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Eileen, welcome.
Welcome. I didn't flash my face on the screen, but I am here.
How are you doing?
Doing very well. How are you?
Good.
Good. It's been a while.
It's interested in stormwater and related matters, and having you kind of live this for a little while, we thought it'd be great to have you join us and tell us what's going on.
Fantastic. Yeah, it was kind of perfect timing. DEP has come back to the township with a few straggling items that they want us to address in the pollution reduction plan. First and foremost, they were looking for more specificity on the locations of the tree plantings and rain gardens proposed. And they wanted to ensure that the stream restoration projects that we were proposing, at least their location, were either directly in or directly downstream of what is termed a planning area. And that definition of a planning area is what we've established and what DEP has kind of dictated as what drains to your storm sewer system. So we've done mapping, and in the last couple of revisions, if I can try to share my screen, Stephen, I don't know if this is going to work.
You should be able to, yes.
Okay.
Eileen, can you repeat the definition of a planning area?
Well, I can show it better. I mean,
Okay.
it's one of those things where if you see it, you know it.
Okay.
But let me try to do this. I'm not expert at this by a long shot.
So
but-
if you're down in the green, there should be like a green area that says share screen.
Okay.
And
And then
you
I
go ahead
should just be able to click on what I have.
and then whatever it is that you want to share, whatever screen you want to share, if you click on that item, it should come
Okay.
up.
Is that working? Are you seeing that?
There we go. Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, it worked. Yay.
So you
excited.
might want to go ahead and take and expand it, Eileen.
I will.
We're seeing everything on your computer.
Oh, gotcha.
There you go.
How's that?
Yep, and that'll fill the screen more.
Okay, great. I can also enlarge the areas that we're talking about. Everything in green is considered planning area. And the green areas are those that drain to some form of storm sewer system that the township owns and has responsibility for. So these are what is used to establish the pollutant loadings. We don't have to do pollutant loadings, for instance, for the Meadow Preserve. They agreed with us that that was open space, not a generator, and we wouldn't have to try to mitigate for that in the PRP. A good portion of Aronimink is not in the planning area because of the rather robust water quality measures that they take on just to maintain their golf course. But one of the things that we had to make sure of with respect to the stream corridors, and it was a revision that we made. Let me enlarge this. Is along Goshen Road, the area along the walking trail that has stream corridor alongside it was not originally in our planning area because there really aren't storm sewers that are our responsibility. Goshen Road itself is a PennDOT road, and they have responsibility for those storm sewers. But we thought that this was a prime example in the Crum Creek watershed of an area that needs some work, some help. It's been washing out, washing away, just in pretty poor shape. And because of that, we added that into the planning area to be able to utilize that as a stream corridor to restore. And if I can work a little more magic, or if you, let me stay on this map before I lose it. We also identify on these maps, every little bright green square with an X through it is a BMP that has been installed by a private property owner. And you can see some of them are within planning areas, some are outside. But any of those that are within planning areas, we can take credit for not needing to account for that type of pollution reduction or that area's pollution reduction.
So can you just
Eileen-
tell me what a BMP is?
I'm sorry, a BMP is a best management practice. That's what the acronym stands for.
Okay,
And best management practices can range from large scale detention basins, wet ponds, rain gardens, infiltration beds. It's the full gamut. It's any tool in the toolbox to address stormwater increases.
okay. So
Okay.
Eileen, are
mitigating.
there any little green boxes that don't have X's in them?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I can't quite see that level of detail. Yeah.
Let me see if I can make it even bigger. You can see there's the light green in the background designates the planning area. The darker green with the X is a
Mhm.
BMP. And one of the reasons we have this area identified, Glendale Road has been the subject of numerous complaints over the last few years with impacts to private property owners from the street itself really not managing its stormwater very well. We have shoulders that are washed out and continue to wash out. We have gravel that ends up down on people's properties. It's just generally been a mess related, resulted in ponding and dangerous freezing conditions in the winter and just really not in great shape. And coincidentally, there is a low volume road grant program that's administered by the Delaware County Conservation District through what's called the Dirt and Gravel Road Program of the state. It only used to allow for any repairs to dirt and gravel roads, but what they did was expand that a little bit to low volume roads that really don't get a ton of attention just because they don't see the same wear and tear or require the same level of maintenance of more traveled roads. So we thought this was a prime candidate for this. George Sharretts in Public Works did the traffic counts. And I think to qualify as a low volume road, you've got to be under, I believe it's 500 cars a day. And I think that Glendale may get from the counts that he took the one day may get under 100, if that. So it was easily qualified, and we did put together a grant, submitted it at the end of October, had to follow up with a few additional pieces of information and a slight adjustment to the cost estimate. But Glendale Road itself is fairly narrow. I would believe that at best it's about 18 feet wide, maybe 20 in some spots where people have, tried to add to it for maybe, I don't even know what reason, but it's not a consistent width, but fairly narrow. And there are 2 storm sewers that collect the runoff on the side of the road and direct it under the road, so that it's basically what's called an open culvert system. There's not a series of inlets collecting the stormwater and going into a series of pipes. These are just clearly crossroads to take water from one side to the other. And they've, with that roadside erosion, have filled in and become horribly ineffective at conveying anything at all. So our thought here was to try to pursue an improvement and also work in some water quality benefits. So what we've proposed is to line the shoulders with river rock, and in collecting at the same location points on the road, we would then discharge not just to a storm sewer to convey it to the other side of the road, but utilize that cross section of replacement and actually have perforated piping and stone, so that there's some attenuation of the water that will go into the ground at that location and help maintain base flows for the tributary that drains down into Darby Creek. And the wonderful news is that after all of our efforts, we were informed on Friday that we were successful with that grant application.
Wow, congratulations.
So that's about $60,000 that can go toward trying to improve not just conveyance, but water quality at this particular location. So we're thrilled about that. One of the reasons I wanted to come tonight was I know that there have been some conversations about constructing a rain garden at the Nell complex.
Mhm.
And I thought we should kind of pursue making sure, and I believe it does. Moving to the site. Yeah, good news is the Nell complex is in the planning area. So we've got one eligibility category down. I believe we were contemplating providing the rain garden in a location that would address some of the parking areas, and maybe even the buildings that are on the site, so that they were considered impervious that was captured.
Yeah, Eileen, if I can jump in.
That would be lovely.
Oh, did I do something? Okay. Yeah, there's actually 2 rain gardens proposed. One is in the Nell complex, and it catches runoff, from the roofs of the refreshment stand, kind of
Okay.
in the middle. And then a lot of the road that comes down between the field and the refreshment stand and the entrance road, and it kind of sheet flows off into an area kind of by the scoreboard.
Okay.
So that would intercept that water there before it would flow onto the parking lot and keep going. And then there was, as part of the same grant, there was also planning for a rain garden to be right in front of the township building on the left-hand side as you look at it, where the flagpoles are currently, kind of by the old, well, what's now the police entrance.
Okay.
And that would catch water from 2 downspouts that come off the building. And then also, if we do a curb cut, some water that sheet flows off the parking area there.
That's fantastic. Well, then we can show them here
Mhm.
in the resubmission to DEP, which hopefully will be shortly. Wanted to make sure we were all on the same page
Yeah.
before we got it back to them.
Yeah, and actually, if I can continue, a couple other things that are coming up that
Mhm.
are all in that same complex is the EAC just submitted kind of a pair of grant applications, one to PICO for an open space grant, and the other one is for Tree Vitalize for tree planting.
Okay.
And Bruce and I have been working with George Sheretz on this master plan, which is ideally if we get both grants, and we just heard that we did get the PICO grant, which is more for hardscaping and trail, open space trail. What we're looking at is the Bishop Hollow Park. That's what it's called, Bruce?
I think it's called Gable. It's part of Gable Park.
Yeah, it's part of Gable Park. It's on the map that you have on the screen there. It's at the intersection right there,
Yep.
right there. And the general idea is to use the PICO open space money to refurbish the gravel trail that goes through there and keeps washing out. And it kind of blocks the water from the east side of the park to getting to the left side of the park, where there's two storm drains that go right into Hunter's Run at that point,
Yeah.
an unnamed tributary of Hunter's Run,
Gotcha.
which is undergrounded under that soccer field and under the basketball court.
Yes.
And then the Tree Vitalize grant application calls for obviously a lot of trees and some shrubs and some perennials. They give you ratios of like 80% of the money has to be for trees. And we're thinking of reforesting that long, narrow park, maybe putting some other trees around the Nell fields. And we've reached out to the Nell leadership, and they're very receptive to this. And also, you talk about like not detention basins, but maybe bioswales or rain gardens. The shrubs that we've asked for, we're intending to plant adjacent to the two infiltration or the two storm drains that are in the park right along Ellis Road to intercept and infiltrate water coming off that. And we won't know till March if we get the grant, but we're hoping to do them in conjunction with each other. And we would love, your expertise on working out the details and making sure that this is all effective and well-designed and also counts towards the MS4 requirements.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
And,
Great.
Cindy, didn't you talk about putting native trees?
Oh, yeah.
Native trees.
Well, they have to be native trees. That's part of the grant.
They won't let you put in anything that is
No.
going to be invasive and
Yep.
detrimental to the area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone, and I apologize for not knowing this, has anyone attended the tree tenders training for?
There are
Yes.
4 of us.
Yes.
Oh, lovely.
Janet, yeah, 4 of
I'm
us,
done.
Janet, Bruce, me, Sheila, have
That's-
all
And George
attended.
Sarah has too.
And who
Okay.
has?
George
George.
and
Yep, George and a
Wade-
couple of his staff people. So
And
we've
Wade
got like
Pollock from
6 or
Parks and Rec.
7.
Wade Pollock from Parks and Rec also attended.
Gotcha.
Fabulous. We've got like 8 people.
And
Oh,
Matthew and I
that's
did too.
cool.
So
Great.
9, 10.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. Well, then I can incorporate all of what you've just told me into the plan and identify the 2 rain
I can
gardens
send
you've
you a
already.
recap email.
Okay, the 2 rain gardens, though, you've already received funding
Yes,
and are proposing them here. So I can put them as definites.
definite.
The others, I, obviously have to say until we're successful, we can't really report on that, but that's fantastic news. Okay, so we have a little bit of work to do to get back to DEP, but I think that's all really good stuff. And
Eileen, do you need more information from this group related to tree plantings, or do you have enough to do what you need to go going forward?
Well, we had put in the response that we're proposing 1,000 trees, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine that we'd come up with where we're going to plant all 1,000 of them at this juncture. So
I
they're going
did get
to.
Eileen, I did get a tentative agreement with Joanne Connolly, who is on the URDC, who's doing the Greer Park. And we're looking to target 125
In
at
Greer.
Greer Park.
Okay.
That's our estimate. She felt confident 100, and I asked her if we could go on the perimeter, so we agreed to 125. I know space-wise, Cindy thought maybe we could get in more there, but we were being realistic about, what we had and hopefully things going forward. But that's the number for Greer, we're hoping.
Okay, good.
And Eileen, if we could follow up on that tree conversation, I agree with you that 1,000 trees seems a bit daunting. And I'm a person who likes plans. So I would love to start working on a plan on like a vision of where would these trees go, private property, public property, specific neighborhoods, and then start thinking about a plan on how to execute this. Like,
Yeah.
can these be street trees, for example, up and down Ashley or on Woodcrest? Would that count towards MS4? And if you can give us some guidelines and parameters, then we can start thinking about how to do this, in terms of recruiting homeowners to, be willing to plant them on their properties, or, trying to get neighbors that live around Gable Park to become tree tenders and to form a Friends of Gable Park organization that might help water these trees and care for these trees, because you can't just throw them in the ground.
No.
So what would be some of the key parameters and the guidelines you would give us as we think about the tree planting? I mean, you told us one important thing already, is that when we look at this map, the trees have to be in the green area.
Yes. That's the first one. After that, it's really, if you remember back to the presentation that I gave for the PRP, if you're able to be removing asphalt as well, we get more bang for the buck for the tree planting.
Yeah, I
So
think
that-
that's unlikely.
So that just as an example, and especially oddly enough, because of COVID, office parks are not going to be utilizing their parking lots as much if they don't have people return to work the same way they did previously. So especially an older development that really didn't have great landscape plans or landscape islands throughout the parking area, that's a prime target for them to cut into the asphalt and plant a couple trees so that you're cooling that surface down.
Yep.
In the summertime. The runoff won't, degrade the streams as quickly. So there's those are the kind of things I think would be, the next level in the green area. Try and take out impervious, even if it's on a small level. Like you said, go to an individual property owner where there's a drainage problem right now. We know that there's people that have seen a tremendous increase in runoff along Woodcrest Road. And in speaking with them, unfortunately, the immediate is, well, my neighbor did this, so it's his fault. And we have to try and explain there's, increased intensity. The storm systems are just hammering, where before they were a little more, I don't want to say mild, but they were a little more gradual in their, how much they dropped. This is, we're seeing intensities that they're off the charts for the most part. But
Yeah.
if the businesses along Rhodes Avenue, where they've literally in the 70s paved all the way to the property line, the entire rear of their building, if they were targeted to try and put some of these in the rear of, it wouldn't impact the visibility of their business. It may, again, cool the surface, beautify it a little bit,
Mhm.
and take some of the damage that's being realized by these people out. So that's the next level, if that's helpful.
And that is, I appreciate those ideas. But again, that would be at the landowner's expense, right? Unless we could find some way of assisting with funding.
Yes.
Yes.
It would.
I actually came across an organization the other day. I forget what the acronym is, but it's basically they go around taking out parking lots.
Well, if you
That's-
look at the city of Philadelphia,
Yeah.
what they had to do, just because they have what's called a combined sewer system,
Mhm.
which is both storm and sanitary in the same facilities. For the majority of the city, they realized that their system is very old, and to try and replace it or make it so that it had the capacity that it needs because of these increased storm systems and maybe increased sanitary flows as well. But they've tried to implement a program by which they tax individuals based on their impervious coverage.
Mhm.
And they get tax credits by reducing that coverage or installing these best management practices.
Yeah.
Will help reduce runoff, so that they incentivize them by charging them a tax
Mhm.
or a fee. I think Radnor's done something similar.
Yeah. I think
And
Lancaster too, maybe.
Westchester Borough has as well, so that it's starting to get some traction.
Mhm. So Eileen, I'm very intrigued with you talking about corporate parks and that, because can you move the map over and look at the campus boulevard? Because I walk through there and drive through there a lot, and I'm always struck, this is pre-COVID, by the fact that so many of those parking lots are never anywhere near capacity. And the stormwater detention basins are frequently look like they're not functioning well. So it looks like there's only a few properties. Well, some of the properties there would be, if they removed asphalt to plant trees, would count.
It would.
Yeah, I know the first property there on the right is Apple
Yeah.
Travel, I
Yeah.
Apple
think.
Travel.
Yeah, and I know they're trying to be a very green organization, and then you have Bo Ryan, but I think that is up further on the left. But we
Byron
can
is
keep that
in this location. Talk School is now in the front building, and the back two are Byron.
Okay.
Can we do
Okay.
anything with zoning, since, with our zoning for parking, they always allocate so many spots? Is there anything we can do? Because with the onset of shared driving services, a lot of people no longer, the young ones don't have the number of cars that years ago. Is there anything we can do with addressing zoning to maybe change some of the expectations of parking spots that are required for buildings?
One of the things we have done is, and we are looking at even doing this with a little bit more in the zoning, is we have this piece set up where they have to reserve for parking, but they don't necessarily have to build the parking. And so we've got a couple places that have done that, which is obviously helping to keep from having quite so much asphalt.
Yeah, BPG did that with the AmeriHealth building. There's an area directly adjacent to the parking garage that was constructed that is reserved surface parking. And I believe there's also reserved parking in 2 other areas in the complex around multifamily. And
That's a great idea. One last question, Eileen, and that is, when we talk about private landowners installing BMPs, such as planting trees by removing asphalt or putting in a rain garden or a bioswale, isn't there also a requirement that they have to sign some agreement that says they will leave it in place and it'll be functional for like 20 years?
There are 2 levels of agreements that we have executed on any property that has required one since 2013. The one level is if they are between 500 and 1,000 square feet of impervious coverage for their project, they can do what's called the simplified approach. And the stormwater ordinance has basically tables and formulas that they can pick a rain barrel, and it tells them how to size it based on the amount of coverage that they're proposing, or an infiltration trench and how deep it needs to be. And it's very cookbook. It doesn't require a lot of detailed engineering. That simplified approach is one that requires an O&M agreement, basically saying, I mean, and that agreement, the draft agreement is also in the ordinance if you want to take a look. It basically says, yes, I'm putting in something because I'm required to, and I'm also required to maintain it. The next level is when someone puts more than 1,000 square feet of new impervious coverage. And that level is typically a lot more involved as far as the calculation that's required to prove that they're complying with the ordinance. And it does typically mean that they have to go to an engineer. That agreement carries with it not just the same requirements of, yes, I have to install this, and yes, I have to maintain it, but there's also a fee that goes along with it so that for 10 years, the township inspects and checks that it's functioning properly. If there's any, we send out deficiency letters after those inspections, if there's anything that they need to take care of to make sure it is functioning properly. You know, the clean outs are open, you know, get them open and see, and that just that it has the, you know, nobody removed it or altered it in any way when we weren't looking. So.
But that's for when people are adding impervious surface. What we're talking about is encouraging very noble individuals to just voluntarily decide that they're going to plant a tree or put a rain garden in.
There's no mechanism currently that would require a volunteer to sign and have recorded an agreement. I mean, it's not to say that we couldn't try to institute one, but the current ordinance requirements or anything are only for developing properties, not for volunteering. Because I think the mindset is if somebody's already volunteering to do that, they're invested to begin with, and you don't need to ask them to make sure they take care of it because they want to.
But so I had a question along this same line about the best management practices, because some of them are rather small. And I see you have a lot of green squares on your map, and perhaps how do you make sure you capture all of them? And couldn't we make some kind of a announcement about if you are going to do an improvement, see if it can be a best management practice, and then we can get even more green squares on the map.
Well, like I said, we process all of these permits. That's how we know where to put the green squares.
Some of them are smaller projects though, right?
Well, especially here where you see in the Walnut Chestnut Main Street, they're on individual lots, yes. But I guess I'm not sure what you're asking, if you could.
That we could have a project where people could notify the township if they are putting in such a thing as a rain garden or a downspout.
Well, in theory, they would need some form of permit in order to do that installation for grading. Because in theory, the soil erosion ordinance requires that anyone disturbing ground needs a permit.
Right, okay.
Okay, so that's the trigger for being able to document all this stuff.
Okay.
But For rain barrels, you don't have any recording of those. Is that what your question is, Janet?
Yes, for
yeah.
the smaller projects.
Right. Because I have a rain barrel on my property, and obviously there's no way the township even knows that or collects data on those.
Right.
Right.
So I hate to belabor this, but I'm still want to make sure that if we launch this effort to have people plant trees and remove asphalt to plant a tree, how will we make sure that that's captured and that we get credit for it?
Oh, what happened?
I guess, how are we proposing to ask them? I mean, I would believe that we'd have to develop some documentation that is making the request. And along with that request, they need to provide proof that they did it. And that proof is how we document it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's the type of thing I want to work out is,
I mean, I'd see it as a simple form. I mean, it's very similar, and just bear with me. With respect to water and sewer bills, people right now that have their separate irrigation system, they have to provide documentation to the township that their water usage is not resulting in a direct correlation to their sewer demand. Because some of that water that they're drawing from Aqua is actually going to irrigate their plants, fields, whatever, so that we have a trigger for that. There's a form they have to fill out and they submit it. So that the sewer bill gets generated based on the separate metering for those two things.
so yeah, it's that type of process of
Right.
capturing the tree planting, and if someone were to do a bioswale or a rain garden on their yard. Or
Mhm.
the other thing is, if you go back to the right there and you look at like Brookside, one of the things we're over by Winding Way Park is there's so many homeowners that live along Fox's Run there. Yeah, now I don't understand why some of them get into the white area. Is that because that drains to Darby Creek?
The reason that this is white is because all of these drain back to the stream directly. They don't go through a storm sewer to get there.
So there would be no benefit there would be no credit towards MS4 if residents in the white area of Ashley Road planted riparian buffers in their backyard along the stream, right?
There'd be no credit to DEP, but I can't imagine that there wouldn't be an improvement to water quality.
Yes, there would be an improvement, but it
So-
wouldn't count for MS4.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of first order streams throughout the township where people have grass right up to the stream.
Absolutely. And that's why I don't love DEP's program. I don't think it really, completely accomplishes what they're trying to do because of the regulatory
Yeah.
spaghetti that it can be. And that's
Mhm.
just what we live with as environmental professionals.
Mhm.
We get used to it.
So this is really helpful, Eileen. So what's the next step? You said that they've come back and they want some more details. What
If
can we
you-
do to help you, if anything, to help you respond to that? And then what happens next?
You mentioned to me that you would email me what you're proposing at Gable Field and Nell,
Okay,
so that I have that information. I'm going to incorporate it into our reply back to DEP. As they've done before, they will review what we give them. If they have any other questions, they'll come back with those questions. If not, they'll issue the permit. Once they issue the permit, the township has 5 years to comply. And that's when we start the hard work of where are we going to do all this? How are we going to do it? And get into the weeds and the
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 tree.
riparian buffers.
Native plants, not weeds.
Native plants. Well, yeah, but you have to get into the weeds to get them out of there to put the native plants in.
Any other questions? Eileen, that was a wonderful presentation. We
I'm very
appreciate.
glad you appreciate it, and I appreciate having an audience that cares about it. I got to tell you, I see most people whose eyes just glaze over whenever I say the word stormwater. They don't like me because they know money is attached too. So that's another concern. Well, I will look forward to seeing your email, Cindy, and we'll keep you copied on what we submit. It'll be on the website as well when we get all that done.
I have a question.
Fabulous.
Can you scroll the map up just a little bit,
I can.
please?
Whoops, hold on a sec.
I just want to see if we're in the green.
Where are you?
Earl's Lane up off of Goshen.
Earl's off of Goshen.
Up,
Oh,
up,
the other way.
other
Sorry.
way. Yeah.
Earl's off of Goshen.
To the right, yeah.
East there, Earl's. To the right more. A little more. Looks like our front yard is,
Yep.
and our backyard isn't.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because we
Now,
we
why
actually
would-
just
Why would that be, Eileen? What, that part between Earl's Lane and Saunders Terrace?
I don't know why I can't find Earl's Lane. Because I know where it is.
It's just north of-
It just, oh,
There we go. Earl, sorry. Earl's and Saunders.
So we're that second little wedge from Goshen right there.
This
Yep,
one?
that's our property. So,
Okay.
and we
So-
have we have major drainage issues where like right in the center of it is a big swamp now. Whereas I guess the back doesn't really have the drainage issues. So I guess that would make sense.
Oh,
These are, this mapping is from topographic aerial photography that we've gotten through PASTA to establish these lines. And this is considered a drainage divide so that this drains this way and this drains this way.
Ah.
That's why. That is what happens.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, Eileen, is I've been to Matt's property and he showed me what he's doing there, is if you look at the narrow green strip that runs along Goshen Road there, and it just kind of captures the front of those properties, there is an unnamed tributary there. Isn't there, Matt? Like the water
Yep.
right
Right-
along that gray
along
line.
here.
It
Yep, right
parallels
along here.
Goshen Road.
And it kind of starts so our house is a spring house. So it's on a spring and it drains down right past our house. And that's where that tributary starts
Yeah.
on the edge of our property.
I know George and I were out here. There was a little bit of washout around a manhole that they had to address.
But so far we've planted 6 trees and 14 bushes. And so I don't know, it looks like only a few of them will actually count towards on this point. Because there's a bunch in the back.
Gotcha. Well, I still think they're gonna do good.
I'm gonna move to now that we've got, 5 minutes left, we're gonna blow through our old business.
And I'm gonna take off so I can grab something to eat before my next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Eileen.
Very much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheryl, you said you'd have
Yes.
an update for us on Greer Park?
Well, the great news is the committees met and they've sent the recommendation to the supervisors. The EAC letter was so well received. You guys did a fantastic job on it. And right
Cindy,
now,
thank you.
the committee is looking forward to having the input from the supervisors. The committee strongly believed in doing what was environmentally right. But again, the decision will rest with the supervisors. And everything in terms of information has been provided to them. And we know that they're going to, their information, the decision will be very easy for them because DCVA, EAC, and a lot of organizations already have kind of cleared the path of what's best for the environment. So that'll be addressed. So that's a good stuff. And the other issue, Bruce, is the winter salt watch. Should I go into that now?
Go ahead.
Okay, and this is for everyone just to check out. If you might be familiar with it, it's called the Winter Salt Watch. And this was put on by DCVA. I attended the seminar last month, and it was an online thing. It was hosted by DCVA, by Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust, by the Wisconsin Salt Wise was on the call, as well as Lindsay Banton from the water programs at the Wissahickon Trails. Basically, as we all know that sodium chloride, as it penetrates and leaches into our water system, it negatively affects our fresh water stream. So with the stream monitoring program, if you want to, and I sent Bruce the link, but I can send everyone again. It's at iwla.org/saltwatchkit. And that's the Isaac Walton League of America. And what it does is it basically allows you and encourages you. It gives you a salt check, and you are volunteering to kind of come in and see what impact salt has from the road salt that's used necessary during snowstorms on our water systems. And they ask you to do a beta assumption from the creek or whatever identifying area you have. You get a kit in the mail that includes a step-by-step process for you to go out, collect the specimen, send it in, and then throughout the storm and throughout the winter, you'll be recollecting specimens and send it in. That will actually measure the amount of sodium chloride that's in our fresh streams and water. This is put on a GIS map, so everybody knows what stream has already been checked out, and it's a great program. They also show you what your chlorine levels will be and how it impacts the water. And it gives you a lot of details, a lot of fun stuff. And you actually, I already did mine for Fox's Run, but I know that Connie, it'd be great if she could do that one at Dunwoody. What they talked about is obviously, they went into the fact is this, that rock salt is necessary for roads. There's no other best practices that can really, deal with the snow. What they suggested are three things: that when we use less salt on driveways and salts, to use it as 1 handful per square yard. So not to be as generous as we usually are. Another thing is that when people use the rock salt, they tend not to shovel, which really shovel is always the best, and then sparingly use the rock salt. The second thing, and this is important for township, especially with the trucks, it sounds excessive, but have you ever seen when PennDOT and the rest of them do rock salt the streets? They're actually suggesting that the township, if they can, sweep up the excess salts that's left on the road after a storm. Again, the reason being is that salt will eventually go into our fresh streams, and it really is dangerous because what it does is the fresh streams should have a low salt content. High levels of salt in the stream create problems for wildlife, and it's not just the fish and the things, but it's actually every creature that touches that water. So the salts do fit into this. They also mention alternatives, and there's some really neat things that certain areas use, but it's really not best for the winters that we have. But for individuals that are interested, they do use
some time here.
Okay, but some really neat stuff if anyone's interested. But definitely go to iwla.org salt watch kit and register so we can increase the stream freshwaters that are being addressed right now.
Okay, thanks. Janet, we only have a few more minutes. Do you want to, you've attended some seminars. Do you want to talk about those, or Ready for 100? Your choice.
Well, Ready for 100, Harry was working or has worked on our resolution for Newtown Square. And then what we need to work out is how we move forward with making a presentation of the resolution to the supervisors. So I think we need a lot of advice from perhaps Stephen and also Leonard. But we have a lot of resources that we can use. Ready for 100 Delaware County has an extensive list of different areas that we need to accomplish. One of them, and starting with the energy transition plan, they have a template that we can plug into. We have a lot of support services from Delaware, not only Delaware County areas that have already made their resolutions, that include Radnor, Lansdowne, Haverford, Nether Providence, Swarthmore. So a lot of areas are already working on this. And I've connected with the Montgomery County EAC, sat in on their meeting just this past Monday. Bill Saby, who came to speak with us, is another really good resource. And very close by, I'll just stop with this, Sarah Pilling from Radnor was the force that got Radnor to support the Ready for 100. She and I have been going to the Delco County meetings when they were live, and they have been using practical energy solutions to figure out how to do their energy transition plan. She's willing to work with us and share with us the information that they are in the process of getting. They haven't received their energy solution plan yet. But I do suggest we start with solarizing, because there is a refund if you use solar panels, and that refund is over by the end of 2021. So we really should probably start with that with our residents. And that's it in a nutshell.
That's a good nutshell. Anybody else? I'll talk briefly about the next two items. Cindy already covered the grant activity. We've got one out. It's been accepted. We have another one pending. The next item is the annual report. I thought each year I try to do an annual report, or I do an annual report, and we've got so much going on. What I'd like to do is kind of distribute it and ask people to supply sections of this annual report so that I can minimize my work and let everybody else weigh in on the projects that we're working on. Is that acceptable to you guys?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Mhm, yeah.
Do you have any closing comments? Cindy?
No,
Okay. Any other comments from folks that might be here? Okay. That being the case, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks,
Thank you all.
folks.
Everyone
thank you.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Great meeting, Bruce.
Have a good Christmas.
Yes,
You
happy
too.
Christmas, everyone.